Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to What's Happening. My name is Chloe Cooley, and I'm your host for today. Um, Today, we're just going to be talking with Dr. Ben Gross. We're just going to learn all about his life and what he does. So I'm so excited to have him on. So, Dr. Gross, thank you so much for coming on.
It's a pleasure. I mean, I'm amazed that in 1 hour we can cover all that ground.
I know. I've got like 50 bullet points, so we'll see what we actually get through today.
Well, it's good to know that my life can be reduced to 50 bullet points. It can be quantified. This is fantastic.
Well, got to hit the high points.
Okay.
We're leaving out the bad stuff.
Oh, okay. That would be thousands of bullet points. Got it.
only the high stuff. So, can you tell the audience where you're from? All of that fun stuff.
Sure, Miss Cool. I grew up outside of Chicago in a suburb called Naperville. It's a very affluent and a wonderful area. We were very lucky. It's not necessarily something that we chose. It's just something that came to us. It happened to be a middle point between where my dad's parents lived, off in the western part of the state, and where my mom's parents lived near the city. And so spent my life growing up there, near the cornfields, but not quite, near the city, but not quite. And just, having, I guess what you call the suburban, lifestyle of, going to school, rebelling, but not really rebelling. And, just having the ability to receive a lot of fortunate events in my life to help shape me to who I am today.
Yeah, that is very cool. So you grew up in Chicago. That is very interesting. I've never been to Chicago.
You should come visit. It's a fantastic city. I mean, look, we got art, we have music, we have food. I mean, what more do you want?
Yeah, I've heard both good and bad things, so I'll take your word for it that it's more on the good side.
Fair enough. I will say everywhere has its pros and cons. I would like to argue I think we have more pros than cons, but if you're looking for championships in sports right now, I would not look at Chicago.
Yeah. Oh, I know. You talk about that a lot. Like, it is what it is.
It is what it is. If people are still going to show up to Wrigley and enjoy a game and you don't have to go and, sign top free agents, then why would you sign top free agents?
It's okay. Look, Alabama's on the downhill, too, now that Nick Saban left, so
whoa.
You can relate.
As Lee Corso would say, not so fast, my friend. We have yet to see what will happen, so I would hold judgment.
I know. I'm hoping for the best.
There you go. Have hope.
But so let's talk about your undergrad experiences. Where did you go for undergrad, and what was that like?
Sure. I went to a college called Northern Illinois University. It's known for three things. Corn. We had a company called DeKalb Agriculture that Monsanto bought. Cindy Crawford. She grew up in DeKalb. Yeah. Turns out she actually used to play softball while she was starting to model, and her mom gave her a choice. You can either play catcher and skin your knees, or you can stop that and be a model. And she, her mom owns a confectionery store in town, and when Cindy would come back to Target, everybody in town would be very excited. What is she buying? And barbed wire. We were the inventor of barbed wire, or at least the inventor of the famous forms of barbed wire, Annie Glidden and Elwood. They invented the forms of barbed wire that were most commonly used. So Northern Illinois University in DeKalb had this great history of corn, barbed wire, and Cindy Crawford. That was about it, right? It's a perfect college town because you can really just get immersed in studies, in the college experience. And so I went there to do physics. My undergraduate was designed to be in physics. I was going to go to grad school and do astronomy. It's a very strong physics program. It's strong in quantum mechanics, which was not my intent. I wanted to study big things. But I had a great education there. And, along the way, I was taking political science classes because I was a punk. And I found this class when I was a freshman called Democracy in America. And I was like, I know democracy. I know America. This is going to be an easy A. It was the hardest class I took. I had to learn to actually read a book. And so then I was interested in this thing called theory and philosophy. And I would take classes on the side while doing physics because it paired well because they were both theoretical. And by the end of my undergraduate, I realized that physics was not the right avenue to pursue the questions I was interested in. And so I'm one credit or one class shy of my physics degree. And I swapped over real quick to political science. and finished my undergrad there and began a MA program.
That's so funny. Yeah, I know you've talked about your background in physics. I just could not. I cannot do physics.
Why not?
It's just not for me. I'd chemistry over physics.
Okay,
absolutely.
What is it about the chemistry that is a more tangible science?
I don't
for
like
you?
either one of them.
Okay.
I don't like either one. I will say that. But physics just, it sounds so complicated.
Look, I get that. Like, I think about that like art, right? Like when I look at people making screen printing or painting a water, like I'm like, how are you doing this magic? I get it. Like if we don't understand the things, it seems really complicated. So like hopefully the thing is like break it down and be like Bob Ross, right? And teach me how to paint, happy clouds and happy trees, and then it's not so scary. That's the goal, I think, of any field, right? It seems complicated, but maybe we can make it more accessible.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. I'm not a science person. That's why, like, even though my major is political science, no, I took geography for my science course.
But geography is a great science. It is. Think about so when we talk about politics, right? Geography matters. If you are a state and you have tons of mountains around you, you have this natural defense that physically makes it harder, right, to roll tanks into you. That matters. If you border a state where there's a internal crisis, refugee flows may come into your state because you're next door, right? Like, so geography actually is this really important science when we talk about politics, because the geography of the land is going to influence the political events happening to people.
Yeah. That's what I did my final project about, actually, in that class, was about, like, the political relationship between politics and geography.
Really? What was the project?
Just like a long presentation stating like what the research showed, that type of thing. It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. But no, given the option of chemistry or physics or geography, definitely.
Definitely geography.
Definitely, because I would have failed. I would not be in school anymore. Like, my mom would be upset at me.
We don't want mom to be upset. No, that is something.
Scholarship would be gone because my GPA would have been tanked.
Absolute necessity required geography. Got it.
Yes. Got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do.
So, what in your undergrad made you think that you wanted to go to get a master's degree?
I always sort of knew that I was interested in education. And I really found that through an experience in Scouts. In Scouts, there's lots of leadership positions you can have. And the position that I found to be the most rewarding was one called Troop Guide. And as Troop Guide, the way our troop worked, I would be more or less partnered with a bunch of first-year Scouts, a bunch of like 11-year-olds, and I would be their mentor, teaching them in that first year of like, how do you set up your tent? How do you cook your food? How do you not kill each other in a camp out for 48 hours when you're having tension with each other? How do we diffuse the situation? And just serving as a mentor for those Scouts, because you don't do it. You have to mentor them. They have to grow on their own. And seeing that group of 8 kids grow in that year was just an incredibly rewarding experience for me. And so from around 16, I always knew like I was interested in education, but I also knew that I was not interested in dealing with parents. And so I knew, therefore, higher education was the path. And I also was really, really interested in astronomy. I was very lucky. My high school had a planetarium. I took 2 courses in astronomy in high school. And so I was going to college with the intent of, I'm going to go study astronomy, cosmology as a master's PhD student. I will then do research and teach, graduate students. And that's going to be my life. That was the college essay I wrote at 18. And I talked about staying up late at night, listening to Rush and drinking orange pop. Like this was going to be my life. So I always knew sort of that was where I was going to go. The shift happened, I said, sort of late junior, early senior year, where I realized it's not astronomy. It's political science. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, and I could not imagine you teaching anything else. I mean, maybe that's just because I've only known you like while you're settled into being a teacher, but political science just seems like second nature to you almost.
Oh no, I've become too robotic. Then you have to have some imagination here. You can imagine me trying to. I mean, we know art, of course, it cannot be teaching. But maybe an improv class. Maybe you can imagine me over in the theater department, right?
Probably that.
Okay,
yeah.
okay, there we go.
Probably you're very theatrical. I could imagine that. For sure.
One has to learn many skills in life.
So, did the teachers that you had in like your undergrad and master's courses kind of determine how you teach now?
I wouldn't say they determined, but I would say that they gave me insights. So like one thing I do, like, and you know this, but our listeners don't know this. In my classes, I refer to everyone by their surname, and give me the title that goes with it, right? Are you Mrs.? Are you Miss? Are you Mix? Are you Mr.? Are you Sergeant? Are you Private? If you're a doctor, fine doctor. Like, you tell me the title that fits it, but I'll use your surname. And in response, I tell you, you don't have to call me Dr. Gross. You don't have to call me Professor Gross. You can call me Mr. Gross. I do that because if we really are dedicated to this thing called student-centered learning, that we really think we're in a atmosphere where we are working together collectively in inquiry, then we have to respect each other. And respect requires reciprocity. And that means if you elevate me, there's not reciprocity at that point. And I mean, there could be a way where you're like, oh, but I'm showing, to your towards your title. Yeah, but if we're really in this together, again, everyone shares what they know, and we investigate what we know, and we all hold that up to scrutiny, and some are going to know more than others, fine, but we're in this together. And that was something, for example, that I learned from one of my mentors, was that approach. But I wouldn't say that no one determined anything, but, my mentors, even the classes I took that are not my major, Dr. Eric Mogren was a history professor. That's where I learned my outro that I say to you guys to the weekend. And I just, again, when he would say that every Friday morning at 8 a.m., it hit me. I was like, he cares. Dr. Ballantine, who was a biologist who required us to visit office hours as part of class. I don't require you guys, but again, to have that open door policy, I learned that from him. And so I think what I learned from my undergrad was I tried to pick all the things that resonated with who I was, because I can't pretend to be somebody. As much as I think the theater department, I could, help. Let's be honest, I can't act. And so I just have to be me. And so I just learned things and picked up things along the way that I'm like, yeah, that seems to work. And I would try it. If it didn't, get rid of it. And if it did, keep it. Yeah.
I was talking to one of my professors yesterday in the communications department, Dr. Teddy, if you're listening, because I'm pretty sure she is. And she was like so excited to hear this show, to hear how you teach, because I was just talking about you. And I didn't say your name because she wouldn't have known who you are. But I was like a teacher that has such a different way of teaching that I've never experienced before. And two people that were in the room actually knew who I was talking about without even saying your name.
So wait, so different. You're saying, like, what's different?
You're just, like you said, you're very respectful, but you were also like, when I first took one of your classes, like, I cried because I was like, this is the hardest class I've ever taken in my entire life. And he's so mean, and he just has so many things that we have to do. Like, it's just, your classes are not easy. You don't make them easy.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I can be a jerk, sure. Lay it on. No, but I'm sorry to hear you cried. Like, that's not the, that's not the hope. That's not the. I mean, I get the gym saying no pain, no gain. But I'm not trying to get you to go take a bunch of creatine and pump up or something. But no, that is alarming, because I don't want people having to cry.
Oh no, that's just how I am about things.
Okay.
I'm very competitive. I want to have the best grade, not just like I don't want to just get a 90. I'm shooting for 100. And so if I don't get that, it's like.
So if you don't get perfection, you feel.
And you are not an easy person to get perfection from.
No, but I and this was something I learned from a dear friend of mine, Andrea Radisanu. She taught me as an undergrad, don't aim for 100s, because at the end of the day, your transcript is just going to have a letter on it. And no one's going to know if you got 100% or if you got 90%, because in the grading system at Northern Illinois, an A is an A, right?
Yeah.
And so she was like, you have to be wise with your time. That's the resource that you don't get to have an unlimited amount of, that you can't make more of. And so just realize in some classes, a 90 is fine. And then focus in the areas you want to focus on to get more depth and growth there. But a 90 is okay too. That means nothing. And again, even an 89, even a B is okay. Even a C is okay. I have quite a few C, well, a couple C's, I'll be honest, but a couple C's on my transcript from undergrad. I'm very proud of those C's because I worked my butt off for those C's, and that was fine. So yeah, but I get it. I get being a perfectionist, 100 or bust, right?
Yeah, and that's just part of how I was raised. Like, my parents very much had high expectations for me. And my parents are great. They've done a lot of great things, and so they had very high expectations. And so I was just like, oh, whatever I have to do. If it means I don't sleep and I do good on this test, like, that's fine. Just whatever. So that's just kind of how that... I'm still that way now, for sure.
No. Well, but get sleep. Because if you don't sleep, you will not do well on the test, right? Sleep is necessity. You have to take care of your body to be physically fit for those tests. So do get sleep.
Oh yeah, for sure. That would, I've learned at least that much. That would be my advice: is get sleep. Don't stay up all night.
That's right. That's right.
Trying to cram in everything. So I'm curious to know, like, how hard was it to get your doctorate degree? Like, was it miserable?
Oh no, I don't think it was a miserable experience. I think it was a really fun experience for me. I think that's if you go get a doctorate, if anyone's listening and wants to do this for some crazy reason, I think the only reason you can do it is because you feel like you need to do it, and if you don't do it, your life will be incomplete. Because there's no guarantee of any job waiting for you when you complete a doctorate. And if you want money, a PhD, an academic degree, is not going to get you money. An MBA is a much better return on investment. A medical degree is a much better return on investment. Even a legal degree, depending on where you go to law school and what you end up doing, is a much better return on investment. The academic degree is not going to be a return on investment. You do that because there's a way of life that you feel, at least if you don't get to do it for a little bit, your whole life is incomplete. And so you want to be in that moment, even if it's just for 5 years. And so, no, I found my experience to be extremely rewarding. My fellow graduate students, both, or it's just threefold, those that were ahead of me, my own cohort, and those that were behind me. We had a wonderful time working together. The professors I worked with and still stay in contact with, we had a wonderful time together. Were there moments that were challenging? Oh, yeah, of course. But, that's life. And you find ways through it. So, no, for me, I think, again, I don't look back with a lot of dread. I mean, there were challenging nights and challenging weeks. I remember being in the basement of my grandparents' house during, the holidays, studying for qualifying exams, and not really being able to engage in Christmas because I had to get this studying done. But that was one Christmas. That was one moment in a tapestry that's way more vibrant and colorful and beautiful than gray and dull.
I'm glad that you say that, because I feel like a lot of people think poorly on going back to school to get a doctorate degree, or just like if that's your path and you just go from one back to back. I feel like a lot of people are very scared of doing that just because of the dissertation of it all and like all of the writing and everything that you have to do.
Yeah, no, and I think that's where, again, the reason you go is because you want to go. And if you're like, well, I hate writing, I don't want to, then why are you doing this? I think graduate school gives you different avenues or different off-ramps to realize maybe this isn't the right place for me. After year one, there's a way to sort of get off. Right before those qualifying exams or after them, there's a way to get off and just leave with like a master's degree. As if you're writing the prospectus and there's a way. So there's different times to realize like this is not for me and I can leave. And some of my friends have done that and they are doing quite well. They are fine. The world did not end because they left the graduate program and they didn't get a PhD. And oh no, like in fact, I would say they're probably doing better than a lot of us who stuck around. So yeah, I think you go because you want to be there. And if you realize while you're there, you don't want to be there, then you leave. You're not forced there. No one's keeping you there. But I think this could be the thing about graduate programs is you sort of mentally limit yourself. You get fixated on this is the only way to do it, and then you're stuck. The other thing too is just shop programs if you want to do that. I realized there's two main methods. One called the mushroom method. Have you heard of the mushroom method?
No.
Oh, you have not heard of oh, this is a fantastic method. Basically, you come into a graduate program, we throw you into a closet, we close the door, and we open up 5 years later and see if mushrooms grew. Right? Because mushrooms like to grow in dark, damp places, and you just leave. And so this is the mushroom method, right? We let you come in. You got 5 years. Let's see if you can figure out for yourself. And if you do, wonderful, you grew. And if you didn't, okay, no mushrooms in the closet. Get out of here. That was not for me, right? I saw that method. I was not going to be okay in that method. The method I ended up in was a cohort method. You come in with a group. You're going to work with that group for the next 5 years, but there's also a cohort right above you. So they took all the classes you're taking this year, the previous year. They can help you. There's a cohort that's going to come behind you. You can help them. And it builds this intergenerational connection in a program. And so, our 5th years, our 4th years, our 3rd years, our 2nd years, our 1st years, we're all it was like a Harry Potter of graduate schools, right? We had a sorting hat that we put on. It was like, you are going to be a political theorist and you are going to be an international relations scholars, right? Like we were sorted into different houses and we competed, but we still enjoyed each other's companies. Of course, we had a Slytherin house and nobody really liked the Slytherins, but we tolerated them. But yeah, I mean, that method was the method for me. But again, everyone's different. And so you just shop around and see what fits.
That is similar to like what Brady Burns said in the last episode with his law school, that they had a cohort and they worked together and everything they did was together. And I feel like that could make any type of schooling a lot easier.
Absolutely. Even the undergraduate experience, right? Like, have you ever talked about a class outside of the class with friends?
Yeah. All the time. We have a group chat.
Okay. Does that make that class easier?
Yes.
Okay.
For sure. So much easier.
And guess, I'm going to give you a horrible secret right now.
Okay, I'm ready.
This is the truth of life. It doesn't matter if it's, you're trying to build a community center in town and you're working with people, or if you're trying to complete a project at work, right? But if you're in a group and you like that group and you guys talk about and you talk about life too, right? It's not just work. It's not just the project for the city. But if you work together and you're engaged in those ways, it's going to be a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable than if you're doing it alone.
Yeah. Like with every one of your classes that I've taken, I've had a group chat with several people in that class. Even if we're not talking about the class, just a kind of reminder like, hey, there's a test due. Or something like that, just because sometimes people forget, but it definitely makes things a lot easier. And if you're confused, you can say, can someone explain this to me? And then it's much easier.
Absolutely. You're right. Like that's fantastic. You guys have learned, I think, a wonderful lesson already.
Yeah, and definitely a lot of, the political science department is small. I feel like you have a lot of the same students. And so for the most part, we've all been in the same classes together and are just taking them together. So we kind of just travel. And that definitely makes it a lot easier, like the 5 or 6 of us that have been in the same classes for 2 or 3 years now.
Accidental cohorts.
Yes, very accidental, but funny how it's worked out.
Sometimes luck just works.
Yeah, and it's very nice that it works like that. Because sometimes I don't understand things, and I'm like, I need you to explain this to me in another way because I'm not getting it. And it works so much better.
I'm the same. Sometimes I do not understand something and I need someone to explain it another way, or I need to find a YouTube video and see how to fix the darn dryer because I've read this step-by-step guide, but it makes no sense. And once I see it, that's the dolly that I need to pull out. Got it. So absolutely, I think that's wonderful because you're right. You just have to keep sort of engaging with the topic, engaging with the issue, engaging with the concept, but change your vantage.
Yeah, and a lot of people read things differently. Like with your classes, with the theory and philosophy classes, there's so many different ways to read things. And so some people will get completely different points that I did not even possibly think of or come to my mind at all. So that's very helpful for me to just kind of take those other perspectives and try to get that in my brain.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's where, again, I think the power of dialogue is a huge power. No one knows everything. I think if one was to know everything, that's a godlike ability, right? That's what we attribute to a god, that something that knows everything about everything. And to my knowledge, there's nobody on earth that has that ability. And so when we talk with each other, and we listen with each other, which therefore elevates that to a dialogue, right? We're not just talking, we're not just listening, but we're in conversation. When we have dialogue, we really can learn from each other. And I think, again, that goes back to the idea of instead of having a teacher-centric classroom, having a learning-centered classroom. And again, learning, not student-centered, not teacher, like, we're all learning together, and we all bring different amounts of knowledge, experience, insights, but we all can contribute and we all can take away. And that's the power of dialogue. Yeah,
for sure. That's kind of a teaser to what we're going to talk about for the rest of this episode.
We're going to keep the audience holding on. They're not going to flip that dial now, because now they're like, ooh,
exactly.
Something more is coming.
Talking about discussion. So I think we're at a good point where we're going to take a good little break. And when we come back, we're just going to hear more about the power of dialogue like we're talking about. So here's some ads.
I think it's just vapor. Vaping is safer than smoking, isn't it?
There's really not even that much nicotine in them, right?
One vape pod has as much nicotine as one pack of cigarettes.
My kid
knows it's dangerous.
5.4 million American kids vape, and most think it's harmless. Get your head out of the cloud. Talk to your kid about vaping. Visit talkaboutvaping.org. That's talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
365, 24/7. You'll find road and utility crews, tow trucks, law enforcement, and first responders working along Alabama's roadway.
We're making improvements and helping our communities stay connected.
We're working hard to make sure you're safe on the road. Now we need your help to make sure we're safe too.
Alabama's Move Over law requires you to move over a lane when you see flashing lights on the roadside. And if you can't safely move over, please slow down.
Visit DriveSafeAlabama.org, brought to you by the Alabama Department of Transportation, Alabama Broadcasters Association, and this station.
Hey Gamecocks! This time of year can be hard for many people as the cold weather, earlier sunsets, and holidays set in. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please reach out. Go outside, talk to a friend, or find something to do that you enjoy. Jack State offers counseling services for struggling students that are available after hours and on weekends as well. There are mental health organizations available on campus for your support. You can find more information on these services as well as request a counselor at jsu.edu/counseling/ You matter. Hey listeners, September 28, 2025 will mark 50 years of WLJS 91.9 FM. To celebrate this momentous achievement, alumni students who started it all have set up a fundraiser to raise $50,000 for 50 years. With less than 2 years to achieve this goal, time is a-tickin'. Consider donating to the fundraiser to continue supporting the station for decades to come. More information can be found on our website, WLJS919.com.
Alrighty, everyone, we are back. So, in case you've missed it, I'm Chloe Cooley, and we are talking with Dr. Ben Gross, just learning from him what we can. He has a lot that we can learn.
Oh, I don't know if I have that much. Come on. I only have 50 bullet points, remember?
Exactly, only 50.
Only 50.
It can only go so far.
That's right.
So, like I said earlier, your teaching is so different than the way that everyone else that I've ever had in my life teaches. And so let's talk about that.
Well, yeah. So what do you mean it's different?
Well, like you said, you have like this kind of general respect, and I feel like I don't want to say a lot of teachers don't have that, but I feel like a lot of teachers definitely put themselves over the students.
Okay.
In a lot of ways, and not like in a rude way or anything, but that's just kind of how they teach. Whereas you're much more relatable. Like you don't even sit you're sitting with the students. You're not standing up and lecturing the whole time.
I mean, and that's different too, all right? Because you've seen me in some classes, like an intro class, right? An introduction class where you have numerous students, and you have a stadium seating, and you have PowerPoints. Like I've taught 500 people classes in Texas, right? I can't sit with the students and do that type of format with 500 people. And so sometimes necessity requires, the sage on the stage, as it said. But yeah, no, I think my preferred thing is this method that you're saying, like when we sit and we actually talk. But yeah, you said it's different. You said you see the respect. Like, how do you see me respecting students, right? Like, what is it about that approach that you feel or think shows respect?
Well, so you're so funny. I sit there and crack up in your classes because you're not afraid to roast people. You're very much not afraid to do that. If somebody is way out of line, like, you'll tell them. But in general, you're just very encouraging. Like you kind of build people up. Like there's people in our class for sure right now that do not want to talk. Like talking is not their thing, but you kind of make everyone feel comfortable like they can. That's what I would say for sure. But the way that I see the respect is almost like I feel like you sometimes are learning from us too.
Oh, yeah.
From things that we say.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. There are things, not just your class, but previous classes, and I know future classes, bring up. And I'm like, yeah, I've never thought about that, or I've never seen that, or I've never heard that. Very rarely it's, never tasted that or never smelt that. Very rarely that happens in class. We're not a cooking class, right? Although maybe we should go and visit our friends over in hospitality and learn more about taste and smell. But no, I mean, absolutely. I think that's the humbleness that I do try to bring. And again, I hope the roasting isn't too harsh, and it's not the roast, but it's the challenge, you guys, right? The challenging class that those that can respond, okay, let's hold those ideas to the coals a little bit. Let's test those ideas and challenge you a bit. And so it's not meant to roast you as an individual by any means, but it's meant to take those ideas and put them through the pressure treatment.
Yeah, I definitely feel like you kind of what you said a minute ago, like how do I feel the respect? Like I said, your classes are not easy, but it's because you want to challenge us. Like in the first day of this class that I'm taking right now of the modern theory, you said, like, if you want to be comfortable, then leave.
Yeah.
Because and that, like, I can admit, like, when I first hear that, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh. Like when I took one of your first theory classes and you said that, I was like, well, this is going to be a rough semester. But it's just because, like, I feel like there's only so much you can learn in your comfort zone. Like, you definitely push people out of their comfort zone.
Well, I mean, so, like, this is, I think, a general part of life too, right? If we are comfortable, well, why are we comfortable? Like, where does comfort come from?
Yeah. I don't know.
No,
it's just a feeling.
Just a feel, like, yeah, it's a feel. And generally, I think, like, when you think of that feeling of comfort, like, what comes to mind?
When I'm at home in my bed.
When you're at home in bed. Because being at home and being in bed is familiar, right? Yeah. TLC said it best, stick to the rivers and the lakes that you're used to. And it was in different contexts, right? But that's comfort, right? Sticking to those areas we know. What's the story of Finding Nemo? Right? Like, stick to this little area that I know. That's comfortable. And if you go out there into the big world, that's scary. But how do you grow? If you're going to grow, you have to be willing to leave your comfort zone and push yourself. So let's think about our friends in kinesiology, right? Like, if you're going to grow as not just as an athlete, but like physical health, I need to get, some pounds off of me. If you're going to grow, can you just be doing the things that you're already doing?
No, you got to change it up.
You got to change it up, right? So we're going to have to get in the gym, or we're going to have to do some yoga, or we're going to have to change your diet. Like, and some of those things might be uncomfortable, but it may make us healthier. So I think it's a really weird thing that we think education should be comfortable. Because if education's comfortable, what does that mean?
Like that you're not learning.
Yeah. Like we're not growing, we're not learning, we're not. So what are we doing? We're just sticking to the rivers and the lakes that we're used to. Now, again, growth doesn't mean that we hurt ourselves. Sometimes maybe we try to exercise and we go, my knee can't handle that one. And so we learn not to do that again. And that's still learning, right? My body can't do that. But maybe there's a modified version of that I can do. Or maybe there's a different exercise I can do that works the same muscle group. And so, getting out of your comfort zone doesn't mean, again, torture. But it does mean we have to try things. We do have to be courageous. We do have to be brave. We do have to be curious and willing to be open. And if we don't do that, we won't grow. Right? At best, we remain the same. At worst, we decline. Because sometimes doing the same thing doesn't actually lead to maintaining. It leads to decay. And so, yeah, I approach education in that sense of, I don't know any other part of human life where comfort means improvement, where comfort means growth. But maybe there is. And if somebody can call in or text in right now or email us and go, I know a part of life where being comfortable means you're growing, let us know. Because I want to know. Because then I got to reapproach my thesis here.
Yeah.
Look, we can be like Jim Cramer here. We have a thesis on the market, but if you got better data than us, call us in, and we will leave the Magnificent Seven and go down to the whatever he's calling his new sixth thing, right? But like we'll rewrite the thesis. But that also shows growth, right? That we have a thesis, we have some evidence for it, but it's not set in stone. If we can find evidence that challenges that thesis, then okay, we have to rethink it.
Yeah, so what I want to mention, and I say this because I told him I would give him credit for giving me the concept for this episode. So my great friend, Jonathan Duncan, because I know he's going to listen to this, I was talking with him the other day, and I was like, sitting there, and I was like, I do not know what I'm going to talk about with Dr. Gross. And he is in our modern theory class, bless his heart. He's a freshman taking a 400 level class.
I feel like you've thanked him, but now you've just undermined him in that statement, right? Like, I just got to note that for my northern audience that might be listening in. There was a very esoteric remark in that statement, but keep going. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so yeah, he's a freshman taking this little 400 level class, but he is far ahead of where I was at when I was a freshman. I will say that. I'll give him that credit. But he told me the other day, he was like, now, he was kind of talking about the political science program as a whole, but then we were talking about you.
That's dangerous.
And he said,
talking about a professor when oh man, bad stuff.
No, nothing bad. I promise.
Absolutely bad stuff. I know. It's
nothing
okay.
Nothing bad. He was like, I think that your way of teaching has, like, he said, it has changed his life and the way he thinks.
Oh, really?
That is what he said. And I have to agree. Like, I feel like the way my brain works is different from taking your classes.
How so?
Just like simplification, because we like what we'll talk about later with like your papers and stuff, but also definitely critical thinking. Like I feel like if I can read Plato and Aristotle, that I can read anything. Like, it's definitely a lot of critical thinking.
Yeah. Now, when you say critical thinking, what do you mean by that buzzword? Or buzz phrase, I should say.
Well, that is a great question.
Yeah.
Just like being able to really analyze what something is saying, being able to apply it to the current instances that we have going on right now, and like being able to apply it to ourselves in a way. And just really digging into things. Like with Plato, you have to see what he's saying between the lines. And that is a skill that took me time to get there, but
look, I'm still working on that skill, right? All skills, even the most seasoned veteran has to keep working on skills, whether it's sports, right? And the most seasoned pitcher, right, has to keep going to film sessions and learning things, or if it's a vocational trades individual, right, who's welding, there's always new techniques that you can continue to develop and learn and hone. And I think it's definitely something we always have to keep practicing. I always think critical thinking, one of the biggest things with it is, start with common opinion, right? There's got to be a reason we have common opinion. It didn't just show up out of the sky. At least to my knowledge, common opinion doesn't fall from the sky. But start with common opinion, and then investigate the common opinion. What about that common opinion does hold up to scrutiny? What about that common opinion doesn't make sense, right? Once we start putting the pieces together, well, wait, A and B are in here, but A and B lead to 7, but the common opinion also has 4 in it, and 4 doesn't fit in here, so I got to take 4 out. Because if this is going to work coherently, 4 can't be part of this. And so I always think critical thinking in that way is, start with common opinion, see what makes sense about common opinion, see what you would have to reject or get rid of with that common opinion. And then when you have what's left, does that end product still make sense given yourself, given your world, given the history we know? Or does that end product this looks really like a Frankenstein? This is not looking good. I've watched Mel Brooks. I've watched Young Frankenstein. I'm going to stop the project right now. And then you go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. Definitely that concept of critical thinking. And especially, not so much right now, but especially in your other theory classes like Ancients, I just felt like I was questioning my entire life in a way. But I feel like that's kind of the point of reading philosophy, is so that you question everything that's around you in a way.
Yeah, I mean, that is both, I think, the exhilarating and overwhelming or anxiety-causing part of philosophy. And whether it's philosophy of physics, right? How do we know what we know about the physical world, for example, or epistemology of the material world, or the philosophy of politics. It's an opportunity to question the things we claim to know. It's an opportunity to question authority. But it's much easier to live under authority. It's much easier to accept authority. And it's much scarier when we question those things, if we find out, it turns out the things that we thought true about the world are not true. And now what? Because sometimes you find out does not exist or not true, and then there's nothing to replace it, and you don't want to fall into that void. And so what do you do in that temporary moment where you're sort of floating in the air and you're hoping you're going to grow a set of wings or something to fly up? And that can be really scary and really challenging. But you said it's also can be exhilarating to allow us to better understand ourselves. And I think that's the goal of philosophy, right? The examined life is a life worth living. Or to put the other way, the unexamined life is a life not worth living, for a human being. To my knowledge, we don't need paramecium to examine life. They can live a fine life without examining life. But as human beings, we sort of have this desire, this need to ask questions and investigate and examine. And when we stop doing that, we get comfortable. And when we get comfortable, then we drive our Dodge minivan and go home and warm up our Stouffer's mac and cheese and put on Netflix and, go to bed and repeat the same thing over and over and over again. And we're no longer really living as a human.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So for me, definitely analyzing, like you said, knowing yourself, but also I kind of look at everything else. I'm looking at other people. I'm just trying to just really, I think I would say the biggest impact your classes have had is now, after reading all these books, looking at everything and trying to dig deeper into it.
What are you seeing? What's something you're looking at and you're like, oh, I see something now I never saw before?
Just things with people, relationships, to give you a kind of specific example. So last fall, this fall in Ancients, whenever we were reading Aristotle, and it was a text that was basically paraphrasing was like, people only follow the laws because they're habituated to. Like, that is something that still is in my brain that I'm still thinking about, like 6 months later. And I'm looking at all these people and I'm like, he was onto something.
No, I mean, it's amazing how we think we are so novel, yet when we look back to others, we see it's not that new. And you see this in religious texts, you see this in philosophic texts, you see this in scientific text. We forget things, and then we go to the manual and we find out, oops, someone found this 100 years ago. Nikola Tesla figured out you could have electric engines, and we just decided to go with internal combustion engines instead, but like, you could have done it the other way. And, it's not that novel. But that moment of where you feel that novelness is a moment where you as an individual are growing, and then you are connecting to those that have found that on their own too. And that can lead to greater depth and greater investigation.
Yeah, I definitely, Hayden, my boyfriend, jokes, and he says that you have ruined his life. He says that. Like,
I've ruined his life?
In a good way, though.
Oh, wait, hold on. Wait, one's life can be ruined in a good way?
Well, I think just kind of like you've broken his brain.
Okay.
Because now, like over the summer too, he was reading Nietzsche for fun, not because we have to. And I'm kind of the same way. I have 9 philosophy books in my Amazon cart, just waiting until I have the money to buy them. Because now it's like you've opened a door, and the floodgates have been opened, and now I'm just kind of addicted to reading philosophy in a way.
No, I think that's one. And again, I think that's the hope of all education, whether it's education in a physical science, education in a humanity, education in a social science, education in a trade. The hope is that you become a lifelong learner, right? The hope is that this isn't just a transactional period where you're here for 4 years, you get a piece of paper, you leave, and you're done learning. That's it. Because again, if you're done, you're comfortable. You're not growing. And so I think the hope, right, is that you become a lifelong learner. And that learning is not just in philosophy or not just in politics, because we have to learn other things too, but you can definitely focus and specialize in what you enjoy the most or what you find the most fruitful. But yeah, I think that's wonderful, because that's the hope, I think, of all education, is that education is not an end, but education is a means, and it's a means that we continue every day. Like Sisyphus rolling that boulder up every day. We're never going to stop. There's no point where you go, and I am now educated, and I am now done, and the boulder is at rest. Education is a daily grind, but it's a daily grind that continues to have payoffs.
For sure. Yeah. I don't mean to attribute bad things to you, but definitely me and Hayden.
No. Please attribute all the horrible things in the world to me. I'm fine with that. I can take it.
I'm well aware that you can.
Yes.
But just like me and Hayden now reading philosophy for fun, it's just taken over in a way.
No, I mean, look, and I know of examples of couples who would go to bed at night and they would read literature, not separate, but read a book together out loud, or read philosophy together out loud. This was the Casses did this. And so, there is some romance in learning together, even. It can be a romantic endeavor to want to learn together. And by the way, what is going to dance lessons with your partner but a way of learning, right? What is going to cooking lessons with your partner but a way of learning? And so learning can be a very, fulfilling way of engaging in meaningful connections with those that we care about around us, our friends, our families, our partners, our community. Learning is a means to building connection.
For sure. That's some of my best friends have come from people that I've been in classes with, for sure. So I want to kind of shift a little bit.
Okay.
Because
We're applying the
like
shift,
where we're
everybody.
going.
Everyone is on the other side of second base. There's one person over there by shortstop, but everyone else is on the other side of second base. We've disregarded MLB's rules. The shift is on.
Yes. I just want to talk. I don't get baseball, so I have no clue what you actually just said, but I'm just going to agree with it.
There you go.
Go that you're right.
There we go.
But so I kind of want to talk about why, because I know the answer, but I just want you to kind of tell the audience like why you do your one-page papers and your short little condensed arguments and things, like what you think the outcome of teaching students this skill is going to be.
Yeah. So to fill the audience in, I don't generally in class have you write many large papers. The largest paper you write is an end of a semester paper that's at like 1,500 words. So there are no 10-page research papers. There are no 15-page papers. You write a bunch of one-page papers for me. And generally one page double-spaced, which means 250, 300 words at most. Why? Conciseness. We spend way too much time saying things we don't need to say, and I'm guilty of that. I bet you we could condense this whole interview into 5 minutes of worthwhile material at best. I am way guilty of this sin. But we need to learn to be concise. We have limited time. We have limited ways to engage with people. We need to communicate clearly, coherently, and concisely what is important. I think a great example of this is something I learned from an experience with the Chicago Tribune editorial board. When I was in Illinois, our former governor was in trial for trying to, I can't say what he said because it involves words you cannot say on the radio, thanks to George Carlin. Or not thanks, but as he explained to us. But Governor Blagojevich was trying to do something inappropriate with Senator, and at that time, President Obama's Senate seat. And, not okay. And so he was put on trial. And the attorney had this very complicated case with all these charges. And the jury came back, mistrial, because it was just too complicated to follow. And so when Fitzgerald went for the second time, he simplified the case. He focused on the clear charges that were very demonstrable with clear, concise, straightforward evidence, and overwhelmingly comes back, Blagojevich is guilty, send him to jail. That's what we need in the world. We need more people that don't write me a 15-page report, write me a one-page memo. And this happens, by the way. I've had students go to law school and tell me they were supposed to write a 5-page paper, and they write it in 2 pages, and the professor goes, well, this is everything you're supposed to do in 2 pages instead of 5. Like, fine. Or I've had students go work for members of Congress. Members of Congress, you have 30 seconds of my attention. I do not have time to read a 15-page report. Tell it to me in a paragraph. And so learning how to be concise, learning how to give the best evidence to support your thesis, learning how to cut the fluff, I think is an important skill set that sets you up for success in numerous elements of life.
For sure. Like we were talking about earlier, I've definitely learned like the argument, how to shape a good argument, because I know, at least for you, it's just how well you argue something. You can be saying the completely like wrong point, but if you can argue it, if you can defend it, that's what matters. And that's going to help me a lot when I go to law school.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I mean, look, my job, I think, is not here to tell you what the truth is. Because the answer is I don't know what the truth is. I have better and worse ideas. I have ideas that I can show you do not work. And that maybe is my guide to help mentor again the investigation of truth. And so, I teach a contemporary values and ideologies class. And one of the things you do in that, right, is you write a paper about what do you think is the best ideology for government. And I remember one semester, someone wrote a paper on communism they thought was the best, and someone else wrote a paper that thought conservatism was the best, and both those papers got 100. And then the class, and then other people didn't get 100, but they were like, how could communism and conservatism both get 100? Well, the point of the paper was not that one of these isms is the right answer. The point of the paper was, could you defend your answer in a meaningful, evidentially based approach? And both these papers did that. So they both think different forms of ideology are the best way of life. Okay. But they both made solid reasonable, rational, sustainable, and supported arguments for that. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Like in that class, I wrote my paper on nationalism. Personally, I could not care less about nationalism, but I wrote a good paper on it. So.
Well, no wonder you don't like baseball. You don't like nationalism. Now I got it. The pieces are coming together.
My dad would be sad at me saying I don't understand baseball references, but I really don't. That's another story for another time. So,
I think you call that a teaser. You have another teaser now. At some point, you're bringing in the baseball coach, and you guys are going to have an interview, right?
I don't know about that. That would definitely be above my level for sure. So, as much as I don't want to, we are nearing the end.
Oh my goodness! Well, again, I'm you know me. I hang out in my closet. I mean, my office. So I'm happy to always come back and visit again if somebody is sick or you clearly right. I don't take sick days. This is not. I don't have a voice normally like this. So I'm here, rain or shine, sleet or snow. I'll be here.
Yeah, exactly. So you might come back on in the future, but so kind of, I want your opinion. I want you to kind of wrap up everything. I know
wrap
this is
up.
a lot.
First off, you want my opinion. I don't give out opinions,
well,
right?
I am aware.
And
of
now I have to wrap up everything.
I just want you to.
How many bullet points did we hit of the 50?
A good few.
Okay, we hit a good few. Okay, so we got 4. Great. So I got to wrap up 4 and plus the other 46 we didn't talk about. Got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just kind of, what's the number one thing you think people should take away from today, whether they're educators, students, my parents, whoever it may be?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the number one thing to take away is to be humble and to be hungry. We all know something, and we all don't know a lot. And so we should be hungry to want to learn, but we also should be humble in that learning. And I think if we take that approach, there's a lot of great things we can all do together. Now, doesn't mean everything that's going to be put out there is worthwhile. There's a lot of stuff out there that is not worthwhile, but that's also the job of learning, is to be able to sift through the, this is gold and this is not gold. And if we can't sift, then we go back into town and we have rocks and go, look at all the gold I found. And sorry, that's not gold. That's just rocks. But again, if you convince people that rocks are gold, then okay, I guess good for you. But eventually that grift gets exposed. Or eventually the society collapses because other people realize those are just rocks, not gold. And so I think the hope that I have, or that I would take away is, if everyone is just a little bit humble and a little bit hungry, there's a lot of great things we can all do together.
I think that is a great point, a great thing to end on. That's kind of honestly becoming the theme of my show, is passion and the desires to grow. So very happy that you hit on that.
I would also hope not just passions and desires, right? Let's have a little reason in there too. A little thought.
Can't forget.
I'll add the 8th cup of okay, that's too much. We'll add a 16th cup of thought. If we can add that in, I'll be very happy.
You crack me up. So thank you everyone so much for listening. Hopefully this has motivated you to grow in some type of way, however you can. And maybe for any students listening, maybe you've been motivated to take one of Dr. Gross's classes or to not.
Or not. Don't.
Either way.
Look, go over and take a Zumba class, right? Go over and take a class in rifle shooting. You can do that at Row Hall. You can go take a class and learn how to shoot rifles, right? Go and take a physics class. We have physics. Go take one.
Yeah.
You will survive. But yeah, push yourself out of your comfort zone a bit, because you know what? Some of the greatest insights we get is when we go somewhere where we don't expect it to relate to what we care about, and it actually brings something back meaningful to what we do care about.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully you're all taking something away from this episode. I definitely feel like everyone can take at least something away. But thank you all so much for listening. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify. It's a lot of stuff, I know, but just in case you missed something or want to update, and I also post all the episodes. We had an issue with the last one, but hopefully we're going to get it all sorted out with this one. So, yeah, thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, this is Chloe Cooley signing off.